All right, welcome back. Thanks for joining me tonight. It's been a very fast show from my point of view. We've covered a lot of material, but there's one that I've been wanting to get to ever since I found out that it happened. And that is the Spain and Portugal complete blackout. Complete blackout. No electricity on the grid. Everything stops. You know, the lights don't function. Your air conditioning doesn't function. Nothing works. Nothing works at all. Are we headed there? Could be. Don't know for sure. It's possible. We'll find out more, though, from Steve Goreham. He is our executive director for the Climate Science Coalition of America and the author of 4 books on energy, climate change, sustainable development, and public policy with over 100,000 copies in print. His latest book is The Green Breakdown, The Coming Renewable Energy Failure. It's like he predicted this blackout. Steve, thanks so much for joining me. I knew you were the right person to talk about this. And, you know, the Wall Street Journal, they had an article, too, a number of people have had. And they actually, in this article, they said, the grid collapse was the result of a series of brazen missteps by lawmakers. They disregarded warnings grounded in laws of physics. One could say that Spain flew too close to the sun, leaving its electrical grid exposed to imbalances that became impossible to stabilize. So can you explain that a little bit more about what they did and how this all happened?
Hey, Jeannie, great to join you again. Yeah, really had something last week in Spain, Portugal. 60 million people lost power, and it was really amazing. They had electric trains that just stopped in the mountains or in tunnels or wherever. 35,000 people were on trains when this happened. They had, of course, lights went off everywhere. You couldn't use your credit card. They had long lines at cash stations, which were on backup power just so people could get some money. People were sleeping in subways underground. I mean, it was just a madhouse. But yeah, we're seeing a new phenomenon here with wind and solar and these renewable systems. As you get closer to 100% renewable and wind. By the way, Spain had just celebrated 2 weeks ago that they ran on 100% wind and solar and hydropower, and now they had this blackout. By the way, this blackout occurred within about 3 seconds, all the way across Spain and Portugal. And what happens is an electrical system has to be balanced between the amount of electricity that people are demanding and the amount of electricity that is being generated. It has to be very, very closely balanced. And operators work to shut down or add generators to balance that demand. Now, with traditional systems, if you have coal and gas and hydroelectric and you have nuclear, those systems are powering generators, turbines, which are spinning. And so they have kind of what they call a rotating inertia, which means if something happens to the system, they continue to spin, they continue to put power out, and they add a stability. But wind and solar don't add that stability. If they go down, the power vanishes immediately. And the other thing about systems is they have to be very closely controlled. Now, in the United States, we have 110 volt, 60 hertz systems, which means that the voltage oscillates from high to low 60 times within a second. If that oscillation gets off, like 61 hertz or 59 hertz, it can also start damaging equipment, anything that's connected to the system, or the generating systems can be damaged themselves as well. So these systems require very high levels of stability. But when you put in a lot of wind and solar, those things can go off immediately. They have no rotating inertia. And so, as I said, Spain and Portugal crashed within a couple seconds all the way across these nations. And, this is something that people are going to have to come to grips with whenever they try and put in very high levels of wind and solar.
Yeah, well, could it happen in the United States?
It could. Now, Illinois is in pretty good shape because we have a lot of nuclear, more than 50%.
Yep.
And so that's very good. Not so much wind and solar.
But once power
10%.
goes to the grid, Steve, once it goes to the grid, you don't control really where it goes within that circuitry. I mean, once they supply that power to the PJM market and it goes up there, it's not that nuclear power is going anywhere that they want it to go. It's a general supplier.
It is a general supplier, but a lot of it is still localized. So now the bad news, though, is in the United States. If you look at data from the Energy Information Administration, back about a decade ago, 2013, 2014, the average annual cumulative outage of an electricity user was about 3.5 hours per year. But that has been rising. In 2022 and 2023, it was over 5 hours per year. So it's almost doubled within 10 years. And so our outages are rising, and the more wind and solar we put in, the more this is going to occur. And probably places like the Northeast, places that don't have a lot of hydro, don't have a lot of nuclear, are going to have big problems. And so yeah, this is something that we're going to face, and just another strike against wind and solar.
Well, we still have legislators in Illinois, though, that are 100% into this. And so, by the way, I just want to mention this right now because the energy situation is very important in Illinois. We used to be on the lower end in terms of cost, which is why we had a lot of manufacturing here, a lot of chemical manufacturers specifically that use a lot of this electrical power. A lot of that's sort of changed. Electricity is getting more and more expensive. The grid is getting more vulnerable, and the Democrats down in Springfield just continue to want to add wind and solar, and their grand plan is to add battery power. So, fortunately, Steve is going to go, and we're going to get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty on this with a live stream town hall on Monday, May 19th. That's going to be at 7 p.m. We'll be streaming it on our Breakthrough Ideas Facebook page and our YouTube, and people can watch that. They can also, when it's over, we'll, of course, put it up on our YouTube channel, and they can view it at any time. But this is such an important topic that it has not received enough attention or enough of the right attention that I wanted to make sure that he had a longer time to go over a bunch of charts and stuff. But back to just sort of the conversation right now. Last month, Trump issued a new executive order aimed at challenging state climate change laws. The Justice Department just filed suit against a law of the state of New York. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And is Illinois, again, going to have some sort of lawsuit filed against them for what they're doing?
Yeah, this is really a first in history. The federal government is now challenging state climate laws. Trump's executive order was titled Protecting American Energy from State Overreach. And he said that state laws are seeking to regulate energy beyond their constitutional or statutory authorities. He called the laws extortion laws, and he was specifically referring to California, New York, and Vermont. And he directed U.S. Attorney Pam Bondi to identify these state and local laws and to recommend presidential or legislative actions. Well, they've taken the first action, and that is suing the state of New York. The state of New York has passed a law called a Superfund law. And basically what they want to do is assess $3 billion a year in total of all the fuel and oil companies for past fuels that are connected to emissions. And so they're passing a law now and saying that what you did in the past was illegal. That is called an ex post facto law, and the United States Constitution specifically prohibits Congress or states from passing that kind of a law. So Vermont has done the same thing. So these are going to be challenged, and they're going to be struck down. They're unconstitutional. This is really a big thing. Now, in Illinois, you have a law called that is in the legislature right now. They're trying to pass one called the Climate and Equitable Jobs Bill. And this is a little bit different. This seeks to promote solar, and it also, is trying to give money to funding for programs that support workers and contractors of disadvantaged communities. This is probably not something Trump's going to go after. I think it's a little bit of I don't think it makes a lot of sense from from a economic or a scientific point of view. But Trump's going to go after some of the bigger guys on the East Coast first, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So that bill actually was passed, and that was CEJA, and so they probably will. Maybe they'll leave that alone. I think it's, but that bill's actually had, I think, maybe at least 3 amendments because it's unworkable. Hey, Steve, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. I've got a few more questions for you related to this topic. This is The Real Story with Jeanne Ives.
Now, more of The Real Story with your host, Jeanne Ives.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining me tonight. Steve Goreham is still with me. Again, he's the executive director of the Climate Science Coalition of America, and we are having a great discussion related to the Spanish blackouts because you know what? If we go down the road of 100% renewable, we know exactly where it lands because guess what? They did the test for us. Meanwhile, though, Steve, there's a lot of other things that maybe people are concerned about it. I'm not necessarily concerned about it, but definitely DOGE is doing its work, and Trump is looking to make cuts, and some of those cuts will go to NASA and NOAA and other federal agencies. And so all these climate models that were built by these types of organizations to essentially convince us that we need to go fully renewable, what's going to happen with those climate models?
Yeah, the climate models are the heart of climate change alarm in the United States and around the world. Mm-hmm. And these models are located at NASA and NOAA and the Department of Energy. And Trump really hasn't announced much, but he is cutting the funding to these organizations. And the new head of NASA, for example, is not allowing NASA scientists to go to climate meetings, that sort of thing. And the White House may soon announce that NASA needs to work on space programs, not climate change. Wouldn't that be refreshing? But this is a big deal. The NASA budget is being cut in half for fiscal year 2026. The NOAA budget is down 27% for fiscal 2026. Those are the plans. These still have to be approved by Congress. But these models have been run on supercomputers for about 3 or 4 decades now. They're very expensive. They cost $50 million up front to get started and $20 million a year to run. And it's not likely they're going to have the money to continue to run these. And it's a big, big deal. By the way, in Illinois, there are a number of climate science contracts, if you will, that are being cut by the Trump administration. The University of Illinois in Chicago, Northwestern, Illinois at Urbana have been out there rallying against these federal cuts for research. And so this is a big deal. It's a lot of people don't know about it. It's not in the press much, but these climate models may go away, and the basis for all the alarm may start disappearing.
Well, I have been listening to the Higher Education Appropriations Committee, and certainly every single president that was in front of those lawmakers did mention that they are concerned about the federal cuts. I did not know that we were getting climate grants like that from NOAA. Certainly we want NOAA to still operate in terms of weather prediction. I think that's actually very useful. Hopefully they keep that as a critical function of NOAA, and maybe these climate models can go off to some sort of, I don't know, George Soros funded nonprofit instead. I think it's where it belongs.
Well, as I've said in my book Green Breakdown, we literally have millions of people working on things based on a false premise that don't make any sense. They have literally wasted their lives predicting man-made climate change. We have all kinds of consultants everywhere. We have deans of sustainability, vice presidents of sustainability at corporations. We have all these people that are working on this climate stuff, and the bottom line is climate change is dominated by nature, not man-made emissions. So it's for my opinion, these people will actually be finding another job and doing productive work rather than working on climate. As you say, NASA should be working on space exploration. NOAA should be working on weather, and let's quit the climate modeling and all the climate stuff. But in any case, Trump is well on the way to shutting all this stuff down.
Well, I think that's a good thing. But, the other thing that I am very anxious about, which I want, everybody's talking about his first 100 days, and he did this, he did that. They're rating him and giving him a grade on everything. And, the border's an A+, and, tariffs are a mixed bag, and foreign policy is an incomplete grade. We heard that from Charles Lipson today, which is great. I mean, I love the guy. He's absolutely right. But the one thing I've been waiting for is for him to shut down the green energy scams. Is that going to happen? Do you see that in your readings of some of the finer details that these green energy tax credits that fuel everything, are they going to go away?
Well, that still remains to be seen. Many of those were in the Inflation Reduction Act, which was an act that was passed by Congress. Mm-hmm. And so Trump can stop the funding, but unilaterally he can't shut all that down. So we'll see what happens in the bill that's coming up this summer. But I think a lot of those are going to be reduced, and that's going to make a big deal. Now, one thing he has done that we've discussed before is he's shut down all licenses for offshore wind. You can't build a wind turbine anymore unless you already have your license, and that's a big deal. And he's also withholding a lot of money that was there for charging stations, for solar systems, and all sorts of different things. So there's a whole lot of funding cuts that are going on. We'll just see how this balances out with what Congress is going to do.
Yes, as he attempts to reprivatize the economy and move things off of the government budget mm-hmm. and into the private economy and say, hey, you sink or swim, you make it, you market it, you go ahead and seek a profit off of it, but we're not going to subsidize it. I'm all for that. Steve, we kind of got to let you go. Thanks a lot for joining me on The Real Story. Really appreciate it. And again, folks, you can listen to more of this conversation May 19th at 7 p.m. We'll be streaming a whole hour-long discussion about energy with Steve Goreham on our YouTube and Facebook channels. Thanks a lot, Steve, for being on The Real Story.
Thank you, Jeanne.
Okay, great.